Buyer's Perspective webinar series for the 2012 year. Today we tackle the topic of account planning. We work with a lot of account teams and commonly see consistent areas for improvement, and wanted to share 6 of those with you here today. To share a buyer's side perspective on doing so, we welcome back the host of the series, Executive Conversation Chairman Jim Melillo. Jim's career includes broad CFO experience in both the public and private sectors and financial credentials within corporate development, acquisitions, and financing. Let me quickly share a few logistical points and we'll get started. This presentation will run about 30 minutes, after which we'll address as many of your questions as we have time. We'll also have some polls during this session and encourage your participation in those activities as well. Jim, without further delay, let me turn the program over to you.
Eric and everyone, thank you so very much for coming today. A couple of little announcements to make. First of all, congratulations everyone. 600 registrations for this webinar is amazing. But more importantly is something that I thought I would just bring up and give kudos to Eric. This last week, Brandon Hall announced the top sales training software platforms in America. And Executive Conversation was lucky enough to have been named one of the winners. Matter of fact, one of only 3 or 4 in the entire sales and marketing training area. In some ways, the Burson Award, which they won last year, is the Golden Globes of learning, and this year they managed to get the Oscars. So congratulations across the board for both the Golden Globe and the Oscars. Looking forward to seeing you on the red carpet. And so we're going to start today's discussion off with, why do you use account planning? How is it used? And we've set up 4 simple ways, pretty common ways, in which to do that. 1, you use it to drive your revenue targets. 2, maintain customer information as a database. 3, help your regional manager to manage you. 4, build a business-based account linkage. Let's put the poll up, and as usual, we look for everybody to participate. You only get 30 seconds. Sean, we have it up?
Yeah, it should be up.
The poll is up.
And we've got 15 more seconds to fill it in. So how does your organization use account planning? This is going to give us an idea of what we should talk to in these quick 25 minutes left. Is it used as a real Salesforce automation, or is it more a management tool? Let's close the poll. Let's see what we got. One of the most important things for account planning is to be able to develop a complete view towards the customer. That complete view has got to include the prosaic name, address, phone numbers, contacts, etc. The critical, the specific business unit and the specific areas you're looking to impact, and probably the most important, the business reason why you're there, the business account linkage. So Sean, what do we have for numbers here?
Jim, we have representation across all 4 options, but good news here. Coming in number 1 at 54%, build business-based account linkage, followed at 30% to set annual revenue targets, and we have a couple single-digit response rates for storing data as well as helping manage folks on a team.
Fantastic, and that there's a lot to be said there for your regional managers, because as we all know, account planning in the past has been used as a hammer. Why don't you have this information? Where's this information? It looked like from the information I'm reviewing, you're not calling on enough people. We believe the account planning process is not only critical to sales, it should be the center. The question is, what does that center look like? And where does it take you? That center should be around your customer's business. All too often, the systems were designed around databases. And as such, the databases didn't capture the information. So what we're going to do is talk about going from that gut instinct, that cursory review, to something that's a little bit more aligned. As many of you have heard me talk about, research is the core to all successful discussions with me as an executive. If you're not prepared there's a lot of reasons why I won't see you. I may not even acknowledge your letter. I may throw you out in the first 4 minutes. Of course, I won't throw you out physically, but I will have somebody call me. Good friend of ours, Lynn, who was a former CEO and a chief operating officer of one of the Fortune 50, used to have his phone go off after 4 minutes of every call, and every person would watch him pick it up. And if you were going well, you had the call. You had the meeting. If not, Lynn would turn to you and say, I'm sorry, there's been an emergency. Well, the reality of where Lynn lived was Stamford, Connecticut. The closest factory was in Rochester, New York. The rest were on the West Coast. The odds of Lynn as chief operating officer of a Fortune 50 company running down on the factory floor to replace toner or refill oil in a machine is ludicrous. But that's what he would do. He would basically say to you, I'm sorry, there's been an emergency. And what that meant was you had lost it in the first 4 minutes. Me, I many times wished I had a security button. Not an ejection seat so much as just a, gee, this meeting is over. You can tell if you're losing me in the first 2 or 3 minutes. That's based on your research about me. You've developed your value statement, and you've stated it clearly at the very beginning of our conversation. And as the graphic shows, it's about me. So let's talk about that. When you begin to talk to me, your value is going to be around what I'm doing. So here are 4 specific items that you should understand. 2 years ago, the first item we were talking about was, what are your customers' core cutting plans, cost reduction plans, cash creation plans? But at least in the domestic U.S. and parts of Europe, UK, Britain, Asia Pac, we're seeing growth as the #1 issue right now. For those of you in the SMB market, we're still seeing cutting, but growth is the #1 issue. Number 2, what can you bring to me? What can you do to differentiate me? This is probably one of the biggest things. What is the I don't know? And then I'm going to assume you can enable me to do that, and you can help me change this. I've had an entire webinar on the concept of change versus current situation. And that is so critical. The only reason I work with you is because you change my business. If there's no change that I can perceive, as it says, faster, cheaper, better, why would I invest? Think about that. You bought a new car. No one buys a new car just because the word new car hits them in the shower. You buy a new car because your perception is the current situation, your current car, doesn't fit with what you need. You want to move to a better situation. Faster, better, cheaper, better gas mileage. It's the same with me. So, first thing is, can you play in my game? Well, I run 2 types of businesses on a constant basis. An 18-month business called the long-term strategic plan, an operational plan that runs 3 months with rolling 6 and 9 and 12-month numbers. So what I'm missing here is a mixture of 2. People that do that can become my partners. People that can hit this ideal position are allowing me to drive forward my operational plan while fitting in the strategic. Operational plan, perceived value, right contact, something I can actualize in the next 3 to 6 months. Strategic, you have the ability to help me take your solution and drive it into value, probably going to become part of my CapEx funding, and it's probably going to have a longer, repetitive, and hopefully, if you're smart, growth opportunity. Growth opportunity. I would love for you to work in all of my lines of business. I would love for you to become the standard across my subsidiaries. Why? Because I'm looking to reduce the number of suppliers I have. I'm looking to reduce the G&A costs attendant with the supply, acquisition, integration, and use. Why would I want to have 4 different types of chainsaws in order to send out a crew to cut down a forest? Let's use one type of chainsaw. Let's have interactive parts. Well, on that simple basis, you step up. As you move up to a strategic direction, what is your ideal position? You have helped me in both my CapEx and my OpEx, and that's what I'm looking for. Who should you target? Well, you're going to have to come in somewhere. Let me share with you some of the information and some of the views that we've developed at Executive Conversation around targeted positions. So first of all, as a former CFO, and that's been probably 90% of my career, I was a CEO for a total of 6 months, at which point I came into wasn't a startup, but it was close to it. After a month and a half, I realized that the investors either were going to lose $5 to $10 million a month, or we could sell the thing for about $100 million. Went to the board, and you can guess what they chose. Brought in an investment bank from New York, and within 6 months I was out of a job and had sold the company. That was my entire CEO experience. The rest of my life has been as CFO. Who buys what you sell? Unless you're out there selling software, which allows me to track my options in my company, unless you're out there selling me accounting software, most likely the buyer is not the CFO. Unless you're selling me global backbone infrastructure at its basis level, the buyer is not the CIO. The CIO is the shopper for R&D, for operations, for marketing, for sales, even for me, the CFO. CIO is never a buyer. Think about this. I know this is sort of radical for many of you. Your buyers are over on the right side of this page. These are the folks whose budget the CIO is going to spend. These are the budgets that I, as the CFO, who's the banker, is going to review. These are the people who you need to be selling to. I know for many of you, you've always wanted to come and talk to me as a CFO, and then I'll wave a magic wand and all 12 of my subsidiaries will move into lockstep with you. I know you've done the same thing with the CIO by making it, quote, a standard. But the reality is that the R&D group in the life sciences business right now is struggling at a rapid pace in order to build global R&D positioning as well as global rollouts, because they need to be able to bring these drugs to market simultaneously in the 100 or 200 countries they're in. They can no longer afford to roll it out in the U.S. and then roll it out in the UK and then roll it out in Germany and then eventually get around to Africa or South America. No, they don't have enough patent life, and they're losing massive amounts of money as Inderol and other drugs come off patent. Those are your buyers. Do not look for me to be your buyer. I'm the guy who's going to start checking these boxes off. ROA, ROE, ROS. I'm the one who's going to do the total ROI. I'm the banker for those folks. This CIO is the shopper for those folks. Go to these folks. Got enough lines on the page to make this question obvious? Go to these folks. They're your buyers. They're the ones that are facing these external issues, the things they can't control. They're the ones that are going to be held by the board of directors to these initiatives, to these SBU initiatives, to these marks, these metrics. And at the bottom level, the departments will get involved. You want to play here. You want to play here. Your life is miserable when you play at the department level. It has just got to be, to be honest with you, purchasing reported to me about half the time. The other half of the time it reported to the chief operating officer. Just depended on the industry I was in. And I knew those guys. And I played basketball with them. I hung out. I ate pizza with them. But the reality was their life was basically, for lack of a better term, to wring and be confrontational, to wring price and concessions out of you. Now, I know that you can now get a PhD in purchasing. But the reality is, it is not a strategic position. And so as you begin to take a look at where do you want to play, yes, you have an opportunity to go in any one of the three. I fully assume you're going to be here in the department level multiple times. If you don't start here, talk about these, you're going to have a rough life. You're not going to become strategic. So far, what we've talked about is my initiatives, my solutions, the position that aligns you to both my CapEx, long-term, OpEx, short-term plans. And you do that through the buyers, not the shoppers. You recognize. You go and see the CFO because they're the banker, just like you would if you were using any banker. They eventually get involved. You do talk to the CIO or whoever the shopper is for your technology, your product, your medical equipment, because those folks are the shoppers. Nonetheless, if the equipment is going to go into the medical group, you're going to have to talk to the CIO at the healthcare organization. You're going to have to talk to the CFO. But ultimately, the CNO and the CMO, Chief Nursing Officer, Chief Medical Officer, are going to be the critical buyers of the product. You know, we get tremendous registrations for this webinar. Recognize there are also blogs you can get in the 30 days or joined executive conversation in LinkedIn. I think several hundred of you have. What we try to do is provide you with once a week, once every 2 week updates on conversations like this. So we talk about potential solutions, and those follow a traditional route for those of you that have listened to us before. And that route is very much along my initiatives. The strategies drive our performance. As we talked about, we've got corporate, we've got SBU, and we've got the project level. And you need to be able to impact me at every level. You need to be able to impact me and conversely help me understand how you can do that. Let me give you a simple fact. I hadn't really thought about this in a while. As a CFO of a major 500 corporation, looking at the compensation metrics currently, on a 2,000-hour year, and God, I never worked one, they were probably closer to 3,000, but on a 2,000-hour year, most CFOs are making are being billed out at between $1,200 and $2,000 an hour. That is how much my time is worth just sitting in front of you. CEOs being billed out at $4,000 or $5,000 an hour. Chief Operating Officers being billed out at $1,000 an hour. That's just the cost to the corporation of paying them, the break-even point. Don't you think you ought to be prepared? Excuse me, I have a cough. Don't you think you ought to be able to bring value? Take a look at this. Take a look at the customer issue. Take a look at the solution. And take a look at the size of the opportunity. Great. You got an idea I don't understand. Fantastic. You got a solution. What makes this opportunity big? I'm sorry, it must sound like I'm dying here. I'm not. What makes the opportunity big is the size of the opportunity. That's where you pull together this and this. Look at these two matrices. Begin thinking about them. What a difference to have you come to me with an idea I don't already think about. You come to an idea about me before I think about it. That's how we decide to standardize. That's how we decide to change. That's how we choose you as the core of our future. Now, how do you get me motivated? Well, bring cough medicine today would be the best one. But this is a simple fact. And we change the typeface throughout this simple page to get you to take a look at it. Think about this. I will delegate you down to the person you sound like. I will move you to where you, let me put it a better way. You are what you sell. When you come to me, I make decisions. Those decisions are based on your ability to change my life. Do you sound that way? Do you look that way? Which one of these three are you? We want to sustain growth. We want to move into new countries. Is this you? We've done this before. Or is this you? We can now grow your Latin American market. And we know that you measure yourself based on return on assets, asset utilization. We can do that without adding assets. Which one are you? I love this chart. You should love this chart too. It makes your life easier. It explains what's been going on in your life if you're in sales. As an executive, I get involved in the beginning, and I have all the strategic direction. As CFO, I set the financial criteria. As VP of R&D, I begin to set the goals, the strategic outcomes. When the deal is ready to be let, I begin to take a look at the impact. In the middle, nothing happens. Not with me. Who do you think is spending all their time there in the middle? Who do you think is doing all that work? It's the low level. It's the RPI. It's RFP. It's the RFIs. Can you come in the beginning and help me with my strategy? Yes, you're going to work here if we have an RFP, RFI process. But if you set this goal, let me clean this chart up for you. But if you set the relationship up here, by the time it gets down here, this is based on you. It's based on your value. It's based on your differentiation. You keep in touch with me, so when we next see each other, I'm hoping I see you here, then what I have from you is the ability to understand your business impact on my drivers, how you align with my initiatives, and how you have shown me, as we talked about before, things I don't know I can do before I know I can do them. Those of you that get involved in the RFP process, take a look at this physical manifestation of this chart. It is correct, nothing but an uphill process. So when you start here on a tender, on an RFP, as far as I'm concerned, you have no executive involvement. You haven't brought any value back here. You're going to have nothing but reactive catch-up. And when you finally get here, you're going to be trying to convince me to work with you at the end of the process. Is that really the way you want to run your life? I'm always amazed when I would sit through capital acquisitions, because I happen to have been, traditionally, I'd be the chairman of the capital acquisition committee, that I would meet companies for the first time at the presentation. Or somebody in a vice president or director level would introduce them as, hi, this is Genco, and we've been working with them around this process. And I'd smile and nod. But I would tell you that I would be astonished that, why am I seeing you for the first time? Why am I hearing about you for the first time? Does that make sense to how you want to run your life? Don't you want executive sponsorship? Don't you want to show me perceived value from the beginning? With business curiosity, so you get to hear. Having business curiosity, when I don't think it has very much value, probably not going to do the deal. When you've got a really cool solution that none of us care about, lower level people will listen to it because it'll be cool. Business curiosity, perceived value, that's how you get to me. So once again, we come to the end of 30 minutes. And you're going to need to take all this and quantify it. Those of you that remember the triple metric, you've got to do the value add at the ROI level, department. You've got to be able to show me how you drive the same solution drives operating margin. How does the same solution drive return on assets? This is the triple metric. Every project we undertake has an ROI, has a reduction in, an increase in at the SBU level, and ends up being a corporate metric. If you can't link this, and I do it, first of all, you're probably not going to get as much credit. Second of all, you're missing a great opportunity. So we've got, you've developed your value, you've targeted the right group, you have talked to the executives in the right way, you've motivated me and you've quantified it, and now you're going to come in with references. I love references, and I hate references from opposing organizations. Look at the upset that has gone on between Oracle and HP. Do you think either one of them, given they've sued each other, and SAP, let's take the triumvirate, do you really think that they would want to hear what you've done for those others? Think about that. Do you really think in a macro level that you want to come to me here in the U.S. and tell me about how well you've worked with an organization that we currently have on a banned list? Do you think that I want to hear about how you've helped a competitor who has taken market share from me? Find a similar project. Talk about an account. Are they on the board of directors? Does the account that you're referencing have a joint venture partnership with us? Are they a major customer with us? Does one of their people sit on our board? Now you've got a great opportunity. So, do you speak business? I hope you do. You should be able to speak business a little bit better after these 30 minutes than after the next. Eric, I know we ran late.
Jim, thank you again for a wonderful presentation. We are at the top of the hour, I recognize, so we'll just grab a couple questions. The first one talking about organizations with multiple lines of business. And Jim, any guidance or things to look for? How many account plans or different sub-account plans when you're covering a larger account opportunity like that?
It's a simple question and it's not a good answer. You've got to work harder. If I've got 6 subsidiaries and they are not that related, take Boeing. I've got federal. I have commercial repair. I have space. Those 3 groups all operate independent of each other. I've got actually Long Beach, Carolinas, and Wichita, and Boeing in Seattle. you're going to have to talk to the presidents of each one of those, who's a chief operating officer. That's one of the reasons why you always went to the CIO. You were hoping the CIO would force the operations groups to take whatever was available. But the reality is that that no longer occurs. And so put on your boots, get your air miles ready, and go see all the subs.
And another question which I particularly liked was, how do I maintain an account plan throughout the year?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not an expert as a CFO in the specifics of it. But what I would do if I were you, if I was your customer, is I would take a look at what is happening each quarter. And I wouldn't look so much at the quarterly reports as I would look at the presentation and the analyst reports. So over a period of a year, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 stock analyst reports that will come out, and I'll probably make 1 or 2 presentations to conferences. Take a look at those and update your plan around them. The quarterly reports are not going to give you that much information, to be honest with you. Lots of pages, but nothing strategic.
Jim, again, thank you. We'll call it a wrap for this one, and for those of you whose questions we didn't have an opportunity to get to, we will take those on with you directly. Thank you again for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on a future presentation of the Buyer's Perspective webinar series. This concludes today's program.
And thanks so much. And sorry for sounding like I was dying there, folks, but I've gotten over it. Take care.